we're honored to have the incredible, thoughtful, and inspiring Natalie deliver our opening perspective. So Natalie Borneo, I'll let you introduce yourself. Thank you.
Excellent. It's great to be here again. As Nalini said, I'm Natalie Borneo. My daytime job is working for Dress for Success Worldwide. And I would say it's my second career because I'm able to actually work in my passion. And during this time, there have just been a lot of emotions that have bubbled up for all of us, I think. And I think we're trying to figure out how best to channel this, what to do next. I've been facilitating for the last 2 sessions, so I was surprised to be asked to make some opening comments to set the stage, but I think it's important for us to spend this time together so that when you hit your breakout rooms, you really can understand what the conversation should feel like. I'm a wife, a mother. I have 2 young adult children, 1 a boy and 1 a girl, and I have 5 stepchildren who are also adults. So we have a very blended family, a lot of perspectives. You probably have the same. A lot of people around you in either your personal home circle, work, or just community. And as we've come across this journey, we recognize how complicated things are because we're all at the core different people, but we're human. The climate that we're in today is, I describe as very peculiar. We're in a peculiar space because George Floyd is not the first African American to become a casualty of excessive police force. There've been countless others, and their death and their tragedy has invoked sorrow and despair, but this one was different. This one was different because it occurred at a time when America and the whole world was feeling vulnerable. We were out of our element, out of our routines, out of the distractions that enabled us to say, that is really bad, but you didn't necessarily feel like it impacted you. So where are we? We're 56 years, 9 months, and 22 days from the I Have a Dream speech. And at the time that the speech was being made, it really was for jobs and freedom, for the fact that the Negro at the time, as was described by Dr. King, still languished in the corners of American society and found himself or herself an exile in their own land. A peculiar place, a peculiar time. And that was 100 years from the signing of the Declaration of Independence. So this journey, this arc, this moral spectrum that we're dealing with seems to move rather slowly. On June 19th, 1865, 2 years after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation, African Americans in Galveston, Texas, heard for the first time that they were free. And incredibly, as we mentioned at the open, we're celebrating that today. That's 150 years plus, and we're still on this journey. What does this climate bring us into? It really is an opportunity for us to recognize that the narrow reality that we had before COVID was very comfortable. But now, without distractions to fill our hours and nonsense to kind of preoccupy our time, we're faced with the unhappy truth that racism still permeates the daily routines and the life experiences of the vast majority of the world. It is our problem collectively. In a quarantine, shut down world, we realize that we have gaping holes in the landscape of what we call humanity. We in the past regulated compassion. How much can I feel? How much should I feel? We tuned into anything that was more focused on us and our circles, but now we're on this world stage. The arc of the moral universe is long, but that but is hope. It bends towards justice. Earlier in conversation this week with a friend, she asked me what my greatest fear was at this time. And you can ask yourself the same question. And I think my greatest fear is that people might get tired, because this is a very long journey. They also might get distracted as we understand that we're returning to our routines, some of the things that we did and were involved with before the pandemic. So does this mean that our priorities will shift again from the human cause that we're feeling to a cause of self-preservation? Do we go back to navel gazing? Do we take our eye off the journey? And so the conversation today, as you registered, was how do we bend this arc? How do we see and keep pace with the need for sustainable change and reform? What do we do to amplify this cause? How do we dismantle the divisive and callous rhetoric that became the standard language? Each of us is a witness to a transformative moment in time today. Juneteenth, 150 plus years later, we're celebrating the fact that we should all be free. At a time like this, we should feel this nervous energy and this concern that this time is an inspiring time. I read an article that said, justice will determine the work that we do to achieve it. And unless we do the work to define justice, we'll never have justice. So what climate are we in? The meteorologists would tell you that we're in the middle of a hurricane season that started on June 1st. We are in a hurricane. In fact, we may be headed toward a tsunami. What do we need at this time? What is the call to action? How do we move forward? And so I invite all of us to spend great time today thinking about this, thinking about what we might do in our small way to begin this journey towards sustainable change, thinking about that arc, looking at the timeline of it. It's a journey, and we're on it. And I'm glad you're on it with me today. So thank you so much for inviting me to make some opening comments. I hope that was helpful to you.